We need it. Oxygen. It's why we breathe.
Don't forget to follow Grit Daily News as well as me, your host, Loralyn Mears, everywhere on social media. And how about throwing 4 or 5 stars our way if you're listening to Apple or Spotify? Subscribe to our show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Grit Daily Like a Boss podcast, soon to be rebranded as The Grit Files, Startup Stories. But we don't just cover stories about startups. We cover stories about inspirational people that have overcome obstacles, people that have found innovative ways of doing something and changing the game. Well, the latter category is where our guest today fits in. Her name is Claire Gunter, and she is the Latin America Sales Development Global Manager for eBanX. And she's going to tell us a little bit about them in just a moment. She had a long history at ZenDesk, where she helped them grow into Latin America. So that in itself is already some interesting stories. Where her focus is in and around how do you connect with people? And you connect through people through understanding their culture, trying to meet them where they are. And that means learning languages. Claire has been studying multiple languages, now speaks Portuguese and Spanish, and I won't even dare try to go there and try to go head to head with her on that. So with that, let me turn things over to Claire. Hey, Claire, welcome to the show.
Hi, Loralyn. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're always excited. Anybody who listens to the podcast and stuff and has an interesting story like you do. So maybe let's roll it back a little bit. So let's start first with eBanX, who they are and what you do there, because it may not be a company name that everyone's familiar with.
Right. Yeah, everyone will not be familiar with it. But I can say that great things about eBanX. Number one, we are a specialized gateway to Latin America. So we are a payments processor and we're present in 15 markets throughout Latin America. And we make it easy to go to market in Latin America. Specifically, one of the reasons that people work with us is that they know the opportunity down there. But the opportunity can sometimes seem too hard to get to because of the payments piece. We take care of that. We are Southern Brazil's first unicorn, which is a great point of pride for the company. And we work with some fantastic brands like Uber and Amazon and Spotify. And, we just keep growing, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. And those are names that we all have heard about. So it's a matter of not if, but when people will start hearing about eBanX.
Absolutely.
And if we roll it back a little bit before that, you were at ZenDesk, which is a company that most people have heard of, and talk about how you were perceptive and observant enough where you were looking around for opportunities and you took advantage of that and said, there's a Brazilian connection here. If only I could speak Portuguese. So talk to us about how people can be looking for opportunities and really creating their own path.
Oh, absolutely. So just for context, now, ZenDesk is a household name. Everybody knows about it. It's a huge company. But when I joined ZenDesk, it had, double digits of people, one office. And, I think I joined right around the time when we celebrated having 5,000 customers. So it was a small company, but it was clearly growing. And, I'm a salesperson. And so I was looking for opportunities. I had worked through all of my leads one day, and I speak Spanish, or I spoke Spanish back then. I spent many years living in Spain, and I started looking for opportunities to sell ZenDesk in Spanish. And I saw that we had some great leads from like Argentina, Chile, Mexico. But when I ran the report, I saw that for every one lead we had in Spanish-speaking Latin America, we had 4 in Brazil. And it was such a small company, and I know that I'm good at learning languages. And so I started making calls in Spanish, and our COO got really excited. And then he asked me, how I was doing that, if I needed any support for that. And I said, well, really, the opportunity looks like it's in Brazil. And if you'll pay for my language lessons, I'll learn Portuguese. And to my great surprise, he said, quote it out. No one's offered to do it. We think there's an opportunity there too. So give it a try. And if you want to learn, do it. My Portuguese teacher and I actually came up with a script that was, now that I think about it, hilarious. And I know I still have it somewhere, but it essentially said, "Hi, I'm Claire. I'm calling from ZenDesk. I saw that you opened a trial. You can see my Portuguese is not good, but I know a lot about customer service. How can I help you? And then the best part of being a salesperson, I was silent. And people just started telling me everything. And I had done a really diligent job of learning the vocabulary of customer service in Portuguese. So I was able to identify when they were saying, but it also helped a lot that I was able to go in and really start having conversations in Portuguese about a month after I started the lessons. So
how incredible. And that's a golden hook, like right there, which you outlined. So listeners, roll it back, rewind, hear that pitch again, because you could take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And what was also fun was that as I would go deeper into deals, people who started with me early on in my career at ZenDesk would actually get really excited about the linguistic development. And so it gave us a point of, I guess, more like a point of coming together, which was basically just me becoming better at speaking Portuguese. And so a lot of them would say, oh, well, this piece isn't really working out with us, or we're kind of upset, but man, your Portuguese is going great, So there was always something to talk about, which I really appreciated.
I love that. And then, I mean, I think that one of the things that you highlighted there, and it's, well, I don't know, maybe like, let's tease it out a little bit more. This whole thing of how we're trying to connect with people. So much of it is via Zoom now. It's digital. It's not in person anymore. We've lost some of that connection. And so building the rapport and reaching out, besides having a really good hook and opening line, can you talk to us about that and how you've learned and to adapt and how to tie in and recognize different cultures, different, differences and diversity on all kinds of levels, and give us a little bit of your insight about sort of best practices and tips you've gained from that?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I've been lucky to live in a lot of different places around the world. I spent a lot of time in Spain, some time in Morocco. I've gotten to live in Brazil, and I've visited a lot of different places. I'm married to an Australian, so my slant is quite international. But one thing that is common everywhere, and it's really my mantra, is assume positive intent. So whenever you go into a conversation, you have to assume that the person who is talking to you and that's giving you information has positive intent on their side. Now, it might be that their positive intent is get off the phone with this person as quickly as possible because I need to get back to my job, but that's what's good for them, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad for you. It just means that you have to understand that at that moment, their priorities are something else. And so instead of saying like, oh, they're not interested, or oh, that person was really rude, you can say that person must have had a lot going on. Maybe there's a better approach that I can take. And, clearly this person is going through something. It can be something good, it can be something bad, but either way, you don't have the same context and you're never going to have the same context. So assuming that everybody's coming into an interaction with positive intent is a great way to level the playing field and open up the opportunity for conversation and meeting on some kind of common ground.
And talk to us a little bit about straddling that line. So because you've led such a cosmopolitan existence, because you're a polyglot and can speak all of these wonderful languages, there's a little bit of interplay and almost intersloping where you're Latina, but you're not, and you're American, and how you're viewed, and kind of navigating that landscape, because I don't think everyone arrives to the conversation assuming positive intent. Talk to us about that navigation, because that's dicey.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. So first of all, I would never classify myself as Latina, and no one would look at me or listen to me and think I was. When I speak Spanish, I still have an extremely Spanish accent, like from the peninsula of Spain. And, physically, I do not look like anyone, what someone would consider to be a stereotypical Latina, right? So what I'm trying to do in my work is be an evangelist for Latin America as a region. And part of that is showing people the opportunity that is there in the types of business that you can do, the success that you can have, and where there are opportunities that aren't just about money. Like, what are the opportunities for job creation? What are the opportunities for building out a truly localized or tropicalized practice, right? And so I'm really more of a Latin America evangelist. And then along with that evangelism, I try very hard to bring Latinx voices to the conversation. So when I get a question like, oh, would you participate in this panel? And this is a panel about Latin America, I always ask, yeah, sure. Like, who else is going to be on the panel? How many of them are in market? Because I don't want it to be, a lot of people are interested in the like US perspective on the opportunity in Latin America. And I can certainly speak to that, right? But when someone is looking to amplify Latinx voices, that's where I have a huge number of people I can connect them to, but that wouldn't be a conversation that I would take on, right? I also love to participate in any opportunities in the region. And so I'm quite close with a lot of people who are in the venture world that focus on Latin America, any of the VC firms that want to amplify women in the market, and also products that are in the market and help them go to market outside of their home market, perhaps into the United States or Europe. That's something that I'm really passionate about. And I just want to make sure that people have those opportunities.
Love that. It's all about sort of, in some place, emotional intelligence, right? Knowing that line. What do you straddle? When do you walk across it? When do you stay on the side of it? And I think that comes with international experience and talking to so many different people. And like you said, entering into every engagement, assuming positive intent and trying to learn from it and walk away gaining something as well as giving something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, a good example for assuming positive intent is when I do get invited to speak about the region and I see that it's really a place where it would be better for them to have someone who's from the market. Instead of thinking like, oh, these people are not paying attention to Latinx founders or to Latinx anyone, I think, oh, LATAM is all over my LinkedIn profile. This is how they found me. I'm going to help guide them to the right person. It's not that they're trying to not amplify Latin voices. It's that I have a lot of LATAM experience. And so they've asked me, right? And so a lot of that is understanding that I think that people they're not going about it the wrong way. They're just, I'm a piece of that puzzle for them. And I want to introduce them to other pieces.
Got it. I'm all about networking myself. It's really important.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm nothing without my network.
Hey, same here. I heard someone say it. Now, of course, you think I could remember which person told me this, but they said, your network is your net worth. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. And I really should dig it up and give her credit. I can't remember which gal said it to me, but it was extremely powerful.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's definitely a way to look at it. I think for me, my network, so much of what I do does require expert knowledge. And so I've worked really hard on understanding that I'm going to have a lot of expertise, but having expert knowledge in something specific is, I can count on other people to help me with that. And I love that I have that ability.
Excellent. Now, got a couple of like fun little questions here. So I'm a big fan of the to not do list or not now list to keep me focused on exactly what needs to be done. And that same thing on the realm of self-confidence and tenacity and resilience. What's the message that you tune out or would recommend to our listeners that they tune out?
That is such an interesting question because I feel like I have so many things every day that I have to tune out. And I'm trying to think of which one I prioritize. I mean, I will tune out anything that is trying to shut me down, right? And that can be anything from negative self-talk to worrying about an interaction that I had the day before. And those messages that are telling me to stop what I'm doing and pay attention to something that really might not be that important. I'm not saying it's not important and it doesn't need to be gotten to, but it's not the moment. And so I used to think back when I was unable to delegate that everything was for me and therefore I had to do everything. And now that I know that not everything is for me, I'm so much more comfortable with getting something and realizing like, nope, that's not for me. Send it to the right person and get it done. And that can help with the not to do list immensely.
I love it. Now, this may be a direct segue, but you might have a different answer. I love this question. I'm going to give you an undo button. Here you go. You get to undo and change one thing in your life. What do you undo?
Wow. Is there anything that I would undo? You know what? I would not have dislocated my knee when I was 16. I would not have, I ran out of the house and I slipped on a frozen puddle and I dislocated my knee, and it really set me back. And it was such a silly thing. It was such a silly thing that happened. But it set me back. It made it really difficult for me to go to school, and your leg is in a cast. It is very difficult to be the person that you want to be. And 16 is when you're really trying to become that person.
All right. Another hardball question. So if people want to dial in and figure out, okay, who's Claire Gunter? Give us the headline. What is your headline?
So my headline personally is Ask Me Anything. I am very open to speak about anything. And I think that I could say to people, ask me anything about Latin America, ask me anything about traveling through Spain. There's all these areas of expertise, but I'm much more interested in people asking me what they genuinely want to know. And I love engaging in conversations like that. So I would focus on having a headline like Ask Me Anything, where people decide where the conversation goes, because I'm incredibly adaptable and I can do that. And that's a skill, right? Like I don't just stay within my area of expertise. I'm pretty comfortable being uncomfortable. So I'm just interested in hearing and understanding what people are interested in.
And that's why I figured I had some latitude here, because you seemed really comfortable as a guest. I'm like, all right, let's go for it, right? Like, let's just dive right in.
Absolutely.
Since this is the Grit Files, or name TBD, but it's all about that gritty and underside. When we look at social media, we look at how we show up. It's a curated micro slice of our lives, right? And like, here's me looking perfect with perfect makeup and the perfect lighting. Absolutely fabulous photo. It's not the morning that we woke up where we were crying because this happened, that happened. We don't share that part generally. But what I'm asking, to whatever extent you're comfortable sharing, what in life has thrown you for a loop, and how did you overcome it?
So, I mean, there's lots of loops, right, in this world. On a personal level, having children really did throw me for a loop. And I think that I got a little obsessed with the conversation of like, can we have it all? What is all? And the man versus woman situation and all of that. It threw me for a loop how much all of that just became noise once I had kids. And I realized that like, oh, I'm glad I read about this stuff, but I am just in it right now. And this is the Thunderdome. And it is still Thunderdome. It's almost 8 years later since I had my first child. And I mean, there's just like times that I have to completely go, not just offline for work, but offline for everything. No text messages, no nothing, pretty much 3 hours a day. And that's just because, those 3 hours are the Thunderdome. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like Thunderdome might just be that I'm reading to them, right? But it's really the time when it's 100% for them. And that's a hard thing to work on. Another thing that threw me for a loop was, I was diagnosed as neurodivergent, and that means that there's neurotypical and there's neurodivergent. And I actually like to define neurotypical, which basically means that you are not displaying any autistic or other neurologically atypical patterns of thought or behavior. And actually a sentence that people say is, neurotypical individuals often assume that their experience in the world is either the one and only or the only correct one. Right. And that actually brought a lot of clarity to me, because I always wondered, like, why is my experience feeling so different from everybody else's? I must just be really weird. And then it turns out that I just see the world and experience the world in a very different way. Finding that out was exciting. And it gave me a lot of answers, but it also led to a lot of questions. But it also put me on the right path, and it really did help me with assuming positive intent, because a lot of times, and now I can say like, oh, this person might be saying something completely different and I actually do not understand it. But I'm going to assume that they're being positive and we're going to figure this out together. So I became a lot more collaborative.
Oh, that's great. It's all about learning, being open to it, which you're exposed to, and hearing. I know like the world has a fascination with labels and this and that kind of thing, but it's all about, I think, what you're feeling, what you're open to, and, open to receive.
Right.
I think it starts there.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of things like you can look back and I can say, okay, there's a lot of things that don't make sense, but it's also, I was able to make phone calls in Portuguese after studying twice a week for 4 weeks. So, there's certain pieces to it that also have a great benefit.
Yeah, it's like, so there.
Yeah.
I see your neurotypical, behaviors,
Yeah.
and I raise you with my neurodivergent ones because I can learn a language in 4 weeks. See ya,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like everything has its challenges and its wins. And so understanding and also, but not chalking those challenges and wins up to a condition. Like I did that, like I'm the one who took the initiative in the first place. Like I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity if I hadn't pursued it. And but I might not have pursued it if I had understood social cues in the same way that everybody else does.
So
like, I don't know how many people just walk up to a COO and say, well, I'll learn Portuguese if you pay me for it. Like that's actually, when I think about that interaction, that's possibly one of the most neurodiverse interactions of my career. So there you go.
And look what it did. It opened up all kinds of new doors, right? So why not?
Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely. So last question. We're peeking into your closet and you're going to describe a pair of shoes, boots, whatever, sandals that typifies your personality, personifies you. Tell us what that pair of shoes or boots, whatever, looks like and why.
So Loralyn, shoes are a hot button issue for me. I have been a woman's size 11 or 12 since I was 15. So I always had trouble finding shoes and often had to buy shoes in the men's department, which I found really demoralizing as a teen. Now there's a lot more size inclusion in shoes, but because that took so long, I would say that I am the shoe that fits the occasion, because I can say that if you open my closet, all of my shoes fit me very well and comfortably. I will never wear another uncomfortable shoe because I had to when I was younger. Like they stopped at size 10 and I often wore shoes that were too small. And so now all of my shoes fit. I have shoes for every occasion. I have options, which I love. And that's my personality, is the shoe that fits for the right occasion.
Fantastic. I love that. And I'm a gal too, who's got the larger foot size and struggled as a teen, but now at least you can find things and, that
it's
makes
fantastic.
It so much easier.
Yeah.
We're kindreds.
Yeah. But, I do joke about it, but I will say that when my father passed away, I received in his will all of his shoes because we had the same shoe size. And so I got his cowboy boots. We're from Texas. My dad's from Central Oklahoma. Cowboy boots are a big thing for us. And I got his cowboy boots and they fit perfectly and they're beautiful. And, I don't know many women who share shoes with their dad, but here I am.
Well, there you go. Right. Why not? And I love cowboy boots too. They're impossible to find to fit. They're just so damn narrow. So with that, the Ask Me Anything, Claire Gunter, who is an open book and has all kinds of a shoe that fits everything. I thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it and your insights about working at eBanX and developing opportunities, both for yourself as well as for businesses to help them grow into Latin America, because clearly that's a burgeoning economy and it's a market that people really need to tap into. So with that, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Loralyn. It was fantastic.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?